Man is the warmest place to hide. Here's a look at the Mondo The Thing, RJ MacReady, Mondo exclusive. Inspired by the 1982's The Thing from Universal Pictures, our MacReady 1/6 scale figure is armed and ready for battle, the ultimate in alien terror, complete with cloth and faux leather fabric elements, plus a slew of swappable heads, hands, and weapons. Available for 10 days only, the timed edition also includes an exclusive dog and spider head creatures. Brr, it's cold in here. Hopefully it's not cold enough to freeze an alien. Before we look at the aliens that come included with MacReady, let's take the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. RJ MacReady is available at least right now on Mondo in the regular release. The one, though, that Mondo was able to provide us for this review is the timed edition that's also going to come included with the Norse spider head and the alien dog. That one, unfortunately, did sell out, and the difference of the prices between the two, the regular release was $235, the timed edition $265, so about a $30 difference there. Let's take, though, the tape measure and see how tall MacReady stands, and I expected it to be the case. He's about 12 inches in height, translating, though, to a figure that's about 30 centimeters tall. He seems to know how to handle an alien. How does he handle AI? Reason why I posed that question to you guys is I'm going to move over MacReady. We're going to bring in the earlier looked at Megan. I was going to say Annabelle here for a second. Annabelle, though, I guess is sized, if you're going to be comparing her with a regular-sized human. I mean, she only goes to about the elbows here of MacReady. But I guess if you wanted to have the two display on the shelf, they're not off proportion from one another, although they don't really make much sense to be displayed together. Sorry, MacReady, I moved you over just a little bit more so I can actually make some space to bring in the box. I know in these reviews I always kind of rush through the box and I just kind of open up the contents, pull out all the accessories, and then we kind of talk and discuss the things that come included with these figures. But really should some time be spent talking about how cool the box is that comes included with the figure. Because if you look at it, it actually does have the doors here. And when you open up the doors, which are magnetically closed, by the way, what you see inside is all the cool little arms here of the alien. That is so cool. They also attach them also here to the side, so it actually looks like the arms are extending out like this. And I just think, like, I really hate to kind of think the idea that I'm going to be putting this thing back in storage, because like MacReady, the box is pretty cool. The figure comes included with. They didn't really even have to do that. It only needs just to really be a box, and once you open up the flap, you take the figure out. But Mondo spent just as much time thinking creatively of what they could do with the box as they did creatively to come up with MacReady. As for display stands, MacReady does have one. The figure display stand consists of two parts when you get out of the packaging. When it comes out of the packaging, there we go. It comes as a circular piece, obviously. There's no printing on the front that says MacReady, nor does it say The Thing. Again, I don't think it necessarily needs it. It's one of the things, obviously, when I talked about the Megan's also came included with a very similar style of display stand. The length of neck, though, if you're also looking at the two, are also identical to one another too, so it just looks like they're using these same stands, but at least the stands are consistent with one another. They take the neck piece, and obviously you take the rectangular peg that's on the end there and just plug it into the slot. Once you do get this in place, it is a little harder to get this undone, as you probably already saw at the beginning. One thing, though, too, is that the clip still I don't think at least it's going to be a clip that's intended for his waist. I think more, if anything, it's going to be a clip that's supposed to go around his leg or around his arm. I mean, it just can't get the width that it needs to properly clear around his waist. So if anything, even though I'm probably not going to have a plan to have this displayed, or MacReady for that matter, attached onto the display stand, I think the idea that they had more in mind is what it was supposed to clip around maybe his waist, because, you know, again, like, it doesn't look like it goes wide enough at all. And I feel like if to fight with this the way I'm doing it right now, what it is only going to end up doing is just opening up the front and the back half of the neck here. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I mean, I feel like they probably could have come up with a wider waist. If anything, just came with one that's a C-clip, for example, that could have fit around Megan's waist for that matter. Could have easily fit around MacReady's waist. But in the end, I'm not planning to have the figures displayed with the stands anyways. As you see with MacReady right now, he stands perfectly fine. There was a fair bit to unpack, but even more to discuss. When we talk first about the exclusive things that come included with the timed edition, MacReady, first of all, comes included with the Thing Dog. The Thing Dog, unfortunately, while having no posability at all to it, it does effectively do what it needs to do. Just a gruesome looking appearance of the dog that we see in the film. Now, we see several dogs sort of melding together here. We only get essentially the one treated dog here. I love the way they've colored this, just in this blood crimson red. Much darker, though, on the base of the body. A little bit lighter, though, as it extends its way out to the head. Again, there's nothing that can move on this, and understanding this for an accessory piece, it doesn't necessarily need to have anything move. I think if anything could move, have moved on the thing dog, maybe this one leg right here, because they probably could have made this into a ball joint. But the rest of it, though, is decently detailed. I love the way that they've added a clear finish to it, so it looks like it's slimy and wet. You get the thing dog, but you also get as well the Norse spider head. Probably one of the more recognizable, the creature that I think most people remember the most from the thing is the one that comes from Norse. Norse basically detaches from the rest of his body, sprouts out these legs, and then waddles its way outside of the room. I think it's one of the things I really like about this is, first of all, there's posability at this. Unfortunately, while the thing dog doesn't have anything that moves on it, the Norse spider at least does have hingeable arms. Legs? I guess they would be legs. Each one of these actually have a hinge, so you can move the legs out if you want. I mean, still in the end, it has to balance really on the legs, so you really wouldn't want to move them out too much. We flip this around, actually, you can just see the look of anguish on his face just moments before he dies, and all these things start sprouting themselves out from the front of his face. Really well painted, I think, too. I mean, they've done a nice job on this. Of course, you got the eyes there sticking out the top there as well. Like this, one of the coolest creatures. And again, this thing's just kind of walking, leaving the room. So those are like the things that come included with MacReady that are the timed editions. And when you look at those two things, and then you kind of factor in the math of being a $30 difference between the timed edition and the regular edition, I could certainly see why the timed edition sold out as fast as it did. If we move those things, though, out of the way, I see what I did there. For the rest of the accessories that come included with MacReady, first of all, the figure comes included with a pistol. The pistol doesn't have, though, well, the inner chamber does rotate, but there's not much else that you can really do with it. It's, though, painted extremely well. Cast, I'm guessing, here in black plastic. The handle, though, has been given a nice wood grain brown, and a little bit of a gold accent in there added as well. Now, this can actually fit into his hands. The figure already has, right now, the hands for the job, or you can also use these hands. The one thing, though, about the difference between this hand and the hand that he has right now is that those are a wider grip. You'll notice, though, with the plastic on these, that the plastic is very hard to bend. So, like these hands specifically, this hand and the one a mirror flip to that, these are trigger firing finger hands. So these are actually going to be the ones that you're going to want to use for the pistol. If you're having a difficult time, by the way, to pry the fingers away from the palm, I have already, in preparation of this, even though unfortunately the plastic has now started to cool, I have heated these in hot water. Just only like 30 seconds. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing this. But basically, just with enough of that done, you can usually, although again, I probably should have softened this up again just before I hit record, usually you can get the pistol right into his hand. Unfortunately, though, one thing about this, there you go. And you can see the finger stick fits perfectly around the trigger. I haven't noticed this as much, though, with the pistol. I've noticed this a little bit more with the other accessory, the other weapon, the shotgun. When you do put him in his hands, be very careful. It hasn't happened as much for the pistol. There's a little bit on the side. But I noticed, though, trying to get this into the grip of MacReady, that it starts to now chip away some of the paint that's on the handle. If you don't mind a little bit of wear and tear to the shotgun, then maybe that may not bother you. Just to be careful when you're putting this into his hands. You know, again, like soften the plastic really. Again, like even though unfortunately the plastic cooled already, by the time I got to these accessories, you may want to kind of heat these up. You can also really use as well a hairdryer, just to make sure that you're not going to end up scraping ultimately the paint that's on the handle of the shotgun. But again, like while we're talking about that, obviously the figure does come included with the shotgun too. One thing, though, I did actually kind of want to talk about, though, is taking the pistol. Be careful, taking the pistol out of his hand. There is actually a holster on the side of MacReady's leg that if you don't have a place to put the pistol, you now do. Pistol basically just sits in the holster like that. So it's a good place to store that out of the way. There's no place, by the way, to hold this shotgun other than really in his hands. I had that at the beginning of this review, though it might change as we get to the final looks of the figure. I might swap it instead in favor for his blowtorch. You say blowtorch? I did say blowtorch. Before we actually talk about the blowtorch, again, the figure does have gripping hands. I've already swapped them out. I think it really out of the packaging, he came included with closed fists. I've already just kind of yanked those off. I did mention this when we looked at the Megan. I did also want to mention this for MacReady. One thing I really like that Mondo's doing is that they include dedicated pegs for each of the hands. So every time you remove the hands, you don't have to go back and, I left the peg behind in the forum. Gonna have to try to find a way to pry that back out. No, like all the hands have already their pegs. Why can't more companies do that? Okay, so the figure does also come included with trigger firing finger hands, good for the pistol. And then he also comes included with gloved hands. Now, while even though unfortunately being relaxed hands, you can't really use these hands for holding a shotgun or the pistol for that matter, or really the blowtorch. At least you get a pair of relaxed hands. I think, though, I mean, even though we already have two things worthy of the $30 price difference, I would have liked if they could have also included a couple of gripping hands of the gloves at least. So, you know, if he's going out in the cold, he likes to keep his hands warm and hold guns. You can't really quite do that if you decide to have him holding it with the gloves. Nice gloves, though, still for what they are. Okay, I know everybody's kind of want to talk about the blowtorch. Some people still probably want to talk about the Thing dog and the Norris head sculpt. I know, again, like those are pretty cool accessories, but this is pretty cool too. Figure does also come included with the blowtorch. Now, the blowtorch does have straps here on the top, and it also seems like they are adjustable straps. You may notice, actually, when you get these out of the packaging, that the straps seem looser than they need to be to go around his shoulders. It seems to be a case that, yeah, I never seem to do these all that well, but it looks like you can tighten the straps up, make them a little tighter so they're not as loose as they appear right now. I think the way that he's actually got them displayed, and by the way, though, just if I get this done, he's got the hose, so the hose obviously is going to pump from the tanks and then exhaust out the flames. The hose, by the way, I think it's supposed to sit at the bottom, so when you're putting on the tank, this would be this way that you'd want to put it on. I don't think you'd want to put it on this way. So I think the frame actually goes on the bottom. The one thing, though, you may want to include before you just start to do that is that he also comes with this cool flame attachment. Unfortunately, though, by using a weighted bit of plastic like this, it's going to add a lot more of, I don't want to say unnecessary weight, it just means there's going to be more weight and stress against his shoulders and his elbows. But this basically is, you're going to plug this into the end nozzle here. There seems to be, I'm going to just remove this, there seems to be like a little ledge here, or a little line that tells you that this is as far as you need to put it in. But I don't think you need to put it in that far. In fact, I don't even think it goes in that far. And you got the flame coming out the end. Now, again, this is going to add a lot more additional weight to it, so just bear that all in mind when you have this displayed on the figure. Speaking, though, of displaying this on the figure, let's grab MacReady here, and we'll just kind of bring his arms back just a little bit here. We'll take the straps of the blowtorch, we'll feed it up on one side, and then we'll meet it in the middle, we'll feed it up on the other side as well. And going back to what I had mentioned earlier, you know, when you do put it on his body, there is a little, well, I wouldn't say even a little, there's a fair bit of slack. I feel like they almost could have really tightened the straps already. I mean, they know how much tolerance was required to fit this on MacReady's torso. Having it loose like this is only going to involve the collector having to go in there and have to re-tighten the straps to make it a little bit tighter. But basically, this would then just fit over his torso. And of course, then you've got yourself the blowtorch. The blowtorch will then fit into his hand, just like that. Now, the figure's body is, while having some decent levels of posability to it, he does have, though, the jacket, so that's going to cause a little bit of restrictions when it comes to bending, like specifically things like his elbows. The one, though, concern I have, though, with the elbows also involves the fact that, oh, there goes his hand. Let's just remove his hand. Actually, we'll take also the blowtorch off right now. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it for the end of the figure review. Let's go ahead and just, by the way, reminder once again that Mondo is using pegs on the ends of each of their individual hands. I really like that. Plug that in place, though. And before we look at the alternate head portrait, wait, he comes with an alternate head portrait? I know. There's a lot to unpack. The figure does have a faux leather jacket. The only thing I will say, though, as great as this figure is, and there's very little I could complain about when it comes to the release here of MacReady. The only one concern I really have is the fact that because they are using a faux leather material, depending on your climate conditions. Now, I've had lots of figures that have had like faux leather material, and I've yet to have one in my collection where the leather material or the material similar to leather has started to flake over time. Depending on your conditions of where your collection is, if you have a lot of humidity, for example, that may all lend to the idea that down the road this may start to flake, may start to split. So far, it hasn't. And one thing, though, is that the faux leather that they're using mistook me almost to the point where I had to kind of go in and smell this to see if it was real leather or not. Then, of course, I went to their site again, and sure enough, it says faux leather material. But it does feel like a good quality faux leather to, again, the point where I felt like they were using a real leather for the figure. And, of course, had they used a real leather, that would increase the cost of the figure as well considerably. Okay, so he does have two alternate head sculpts. He has this one, which basically joins the rest of his body when you get him out of the packaging, but he does also come with the more frost-bitten MacReady. Unfortunately, in both the cases, the one thing the figure is absent of is his hat. He doesn't have his hat included with this figure. He doesn't also even have goggles. I think, though, down the road, if Mondo was smart, they could re-release this guy again and release him with both the hat and the goggles. And then you could have him maybe include a couple of other thing creatures or maybe some of the other accessories. Even like, as you probably already saw, he doesn't come included with them, even like the little lab test tubes or little beakers. What do they call them? The petri dishes. The petri dishes where, you know, they put the blood in, they're testing that with the flame. Something like that, for example, they could include with that maybe as a second edition version of MacReady, where maybe down the road they could release him again with the hat. I think it's just one thing I really would have loved to see this figure come included with. I'm not disappointed that he doesn't have it for all the other bells and all the other whistles on both sides of him that he already had at his disposal. But the defaulted head that we get here is, I would easily say, it's probably one of the best likenesses to Kurt Russell we've ever gotten. There has been a couple of figure companies that have helmed a likeness, I would say, of like Kurt Russell. Like we've got Snake Plissken. We did get a Snake Plissken release from a company. We've also gotten a couple of other MacReadys from other figure companies as well. But hands down for me, this is probably the best likeness we have gotten. Again, pick your poison as to which sculpt you want to go with. This one just basically gives you, well, it's a little bit different of an expression, but it also gives you a little more frost on his beard and on his hair. It looks like he's definitely a lot colder too. If you did want to change out the head, it's just a case of taking off. Even though this is the head I'm going to be using displaying him wise, just going to pop the head at least from the ball joint, put the other alternate head in place. And again, we got ourselves MacReady, more outside, more freezing to death. And of course, he has to worry about an alien there as well. As for the rest of his outfit, even though this is a faux leather material, again, like the quality of material that they've used for the jacket is good, really good, in fact. The only thing, again, I kind of worry about is permanently posing this guy with his elbows always bent. Usually when it comes to faux leather material, for example, like if you always have a bend in one area and you leave it like that for a while. Now, again, I'm only basing it from my own collection. I've never had issues where like leather like this has flaked. But you may not want to have this figure always in a permanent bend like this if you had problems in the past where material like this has started to flake off. But like the jacket is decently well done. I mean, like even to the point they've even added the fur trim on the inside of the jacket. It does have a functioning zipper that does work. I'm not going to zip it all the way down because just for how small that zipper is, there's no way I'd be able to get it back up. But anyways, it does have a functioning zipper. Underneath the jacket, you've got the fur trim, and then he's got his green outfit underneath, which does also have another zipper underneath. Got some pockets there on the side. The pockets do look like they store stuff, although he doesn't really have anything small enough to fit inside of them. As for the rest of his outfit, of course, he's got the pockets there on the front. These pockets, I think they are actually pockets, aren't functioning at all, so there's nothing you can actually put inside of them. But I'm guessing, I think these were actually zippers in the film. The belt looks good, too. It doesn't feel, though, quite like it's faux leather. It actually feels more, if anything, like suede. And, of course, you got the little holster there on the side. This is also a faux suede material, so it's not plastic that they've used at all. And it does, for the most part, do a decent enough job of holding the pistol. The pistol does flop around a little bit. I think maybe there's a little bit of afforded space, maybe too much space that they put inside the holster. But on that, like I think they've done really a nice job on this guy. Of course, he's got his boots also down below there. It's about the only thing really on the figure that is sculpted in plastic. Because it's also sculpted in plastic, it's going to mean that there's a little bit more limitations with what you can actually do with his ankles as we run through the articulation of MacReady right now. Sticking with, though, freezing Kurt Russell, head's going to be on a ball joint, so it does rotate back and forth. It looks up, it looks down, actually quite a bit down, and it also moves back and forth as well. The upper torso appears to be on a ball joint where, so like right around here, there's a torso sectional piece that actually rotates independently on its own. But it does seem also that he's got a ball joint probably at the base of his abdomen. His arms easily come out despite being encased in faux leather. You can move them forward, you can move them back. The figure does have a swivel in the bicep, what seems to be a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around. Sometimes, though, when you are rotating the hands periodically, they do pop out. But I mean, as quickly as they pop out, they're just as easy to pop back in place. Legs do split out. That's as far as probably you're going to want to split MacReady's legs. You can also move the legs forward and move them back, but there's not as much mileage with how much you can actually swing these forward. That's to the extent of how far forward they'll actually go before they get a little tight around here. It seems also that they've added a little bit of additional padding to the tops of his thighs, where like right here it feels a little softer than the, obviously where this is just sitting against the plastic down below. Speaking of down below, though, the figure does have a double hinge on the knee. Articulation where you can kind of move it back and forth on the boots. But again, like because they're all encased in plastic, you're not really going to be able to do too much when it comes to the articulation there. The only thing I would say about MacReady, as great of a figure as they did do for this guy, the only one concern I really have is like the leather material for this jacket. Now, that, again, goes with only just, again, the conditions of how you have your collectibles displayed. For a while, I've had like a lot of like 6-scale figures that have had faux leather material used for their jackets, and I've never had any flaking. I have bought figures, for example, online, opened up the packaging, and I guess just by humid conditions of where they were storing their collections, I've taken out figures that have just flaked apart on me, and that was just so disappointing. But because he does have a leather jacket in the film, the only way around all of that is had they give him a real leather jacket. But again, like with that alone, the price of what these guys would then be going for would probably leave the area of $200 and probably sit more closer into a $300 to $350 price if, again, they were starting to incorporate things like leather material. Other than the leather, though, the head sculpt is, for me, one of the best that we've gotten for Kurt Russell. Whether you want to go with the frostbitten look, whether you want to beeline it back to the defaulted look of the way he comes out of the packaging, I don't think there has been a better Kurt Russell likeness on the market. Mondo, I think, has done an incredible job. Now, again, like when you're looking at the pricing for this guy, what did I say? He was like $230, $235 for the standard release, $265 if you guys wanted to get the timed edition of him. The timed edition does give you then Norse's spider head and also the Thing Dog. That alone could be not only the reasons why I think the timed edition was probably the better option to get of the two, but also probably means why the timed edition sold out as fast as it did. While the timed edition, until maybe they do a second run of this figure, while a timed unfortunately isn't available, the regular release certainly still is. And even though unfortunately you're not going to be getting Thing creatures along with it, MacReady on his own, standing on his own, is still well worth the price. While I will admit that MacReady does certainly look a lot cooler having his blowtorch with him, adding, though, the flame effect on the end of it adds a lot of weight, even more than you're probably expecting it to have. Definitely, though, I would recommend, first of all, that you're going to have the character holding it with both hands, not just the one. And even then, it's, I feel, going to be adding a lot of stress over time, not only in his shoulders, not only in his elbows, but also keeping the peg still in his forearms. So for me, at least, when it comes to displaying this guy, what I might just end up doing is, if I still want to have the flame on the end, I might maybe find a way to prop it up and kind of just alleviate some of the weight behind. Granted, one of the things that they could have also have done too is included like a post, something that could have plugged onto the bottom of the flame and been like a self-standing base to kind of just keep the weight somewhat dedicated to that area and less away from MacReady. If not for that, again, you might just want to have something underneath the flame because, again, like it's going to be a lot of wear and tear to the figure, unnecessary wear and tear. Even though quarters are quite small here, I managed to at least bring back in the Thing Dog and the Norse spider head. Two welcomed accessories that are part of the timed edition only. So if you were lucky enough to get yourself the timed edition, you're getting the benefit of having those two alien creatures coming along for the ride with MacReady. I've gone in also and adjusted the straps. I mean, the straps really aren't all that difficult. You're just basically bringing the adjustment piece further up to his body, and that will tighten the straps. But again, like, it's one of the coolest accessories around. The fact he comes included with the blowtorch. I just don't think I like the idea of having the flames always on the end of it, because I just don't think it's going to be something that he's going to be able to hold over time. Once again, though, the timed edition is unfortunately sold out over on Mondo's site. The difference, though, of price between the two is about $30. So for $30, Mondo seems to be doing that quite well. With the timed editions, you're not paying over the nose through the roof for timed editions versus regular editions. Usually, they tend to factor in about $30 to $50 difference between the two. But always with the times, they always seem to have enough cool accessories in there that could warrant why you'd want to get the timed over the regular. Again, while though the timed edition has sold out, the regular version of MacReady is still though available over on their site. I can most definitely provide the link down below in the video description for $235, one of the best likenesses not only of MacReady, but the actor Kurt Russell that famously portrayed the role as well. Big thank you again to the folks over at Mondo that did provide the sample of the Thing MacReady 1/6 scale figure that we had the chance to have a look at in this review. Have you guys had the chance to pick up this figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Or if you haven't, would you guys be interested to get the regular release or the timed edition if you guys can get your hands on one? I can only hope that, fingers crossed, Mondo does decide to release a second run of them. They've done it from time to time with their figures that they've released in the past. If they sell out right away, that's usually an indication that collectors want these badly. If you guys did enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. If you guys want to stick around for more so, I hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.